establishes the emotional foundation of the story by placing the reader in a world defined by isolation, survival, and moral choice. The opening image of the storm is not just weather, it represents the harshness of the world both characters live in. The cold is relentless, uncaring, and symbolic of a society that has grown indifferent to suffering, especially toward marginalized people. Eli Turner's cabin stands as a fragile refuge against. Eli is introduced as a man shaped by solitude. His routine, feeding the stove, listening to the wind, living alone, shows a person who has withdrawn from society not out of hatred, but exhaustion. He has learned to expect nothing from the world, and in return he offers little. The silence he lives in is protective, but also emotionally limiting. The knock on the door is the central moment of this chapter. It breaks the silence and forces Eli into a moral crossroads. Importantly, the knock is weak, almost swallowed by the storm. This detail emphasizes vulnerability. Whoever is outside is not a threat, but a person at the edge of survival. Eli's instinct to grab his rifle reflects the fear that isolation breeds, not prejudice necessarily, but caution born of past hardship. Yet he does not raise the weapon. Ayana's introduction is intentionally quiet and dignified. She does not collapse dramatically or beg hysterically. Instead, she speaks calmly, even politely, despite being near death. Her line, "May I sleep in your cabin, sir? It's freezing outside," is powerful because it is simple and honest. She does not demand help. She asks for basic human mercy. Her composure contrasts with the chaos of the storm, showing inner strength and self-respect. Eli's decision to let her in is not portrayed as heroic, but as necessary. He recognizes a basic truth: nature does not discriminate, and neither should survival. His line, "Cold doesn't care who you are," is a key thematic statement. It frames the chapter's moral logic. Human compassion should be as universal as nature's cruelty. The fire, the blanket, the broth all represent the return of care, not just to Ayana's body, but to Eli's spirit. As he helps her, he steps back into a role he had abandoned: protector, helper, fellow human. The act of caregiving is quiet but transformative. Ayana's restraint continues throughout the chapter. She does not overstay her welcome emotionally or physically. Her statement, "I won't be trouble," reflects the learned survival behavior of someone accustomed to rejection. This hints at her past experiences without explicitly stating them, allowing the reader to feel the weight of systemic exclusion. The chapter ends in shared silence, which is crucial. This silence is no longer empty or defensive. It is shared, respectful, and full of unspoken understanding. The storm outside contrasts with the fragile peace inside, reinforcing the idea that kindness, even between strangers, can create sanctuary in an unforgiving world. Deepens the emotional and philosophical core of the story by shifting from survival to understanding. With the immediate danger of freezing reduced, the narrative focuses on identity, history, and mutual recognition. This chapter is quieter but more intimate, as it allows the characters to reveal who they are beyond their circumstances. Ayana's sleep near the fire symbolizes recovery, not just physical, but emotional. For the first time in the story, she is safe enough to rest fully. Eli's decision to stay awake and tend the fire shows silent responsibility. He does not hover or expect gratitude. He simply ensures her survival. This behavior reinforces his character as someone who acts ethically without seeking validation. When Ayana wakes and speaks with clarity, it shows her resilience. She immediately reasserts agency by commenting that she should have been woken. This is important. She's not portrayed as passive or dependent. The story avoids the common trope of helplessness by giving her dignity and awareness. Their shared meal marks a shift from caretaker and survivor to equals. Eating together is a deeply human act, symbolizing trust. Around the fire, conversation begins, not forced, but natural. The firelight imagery suggests warmth illuminating hidden truths, allowing stories to emerge that the cold world outside suppresses. Ayana's story reveals systemic hardship without bitterness. She speaks of her people being pushed out, of broken promises, and of her role as a messenger. This is crucial. She is not merely a victim of history, but an active participant in her community's survival. Her role gives her purpose and responsibility. The snow interrupting her journey becomes symbolic of how larger forces, nature, society, power, often obstruct the paths of those already burdened. Eli's story parallels hers in a different way. His isolation is self-chosen, but not without cause. The war he mentions represents trauma and disillusionment. The mountains, while harsh, offered him something the world could not: silence without judgment. His withdrawal is a form of survival, much like Ayana's endurance. The conversation about fear is one of the chapter's emotional peaks. When Ayana asks if Eli is afraid of her, she's not asking about physical danger, but social prejudice. This moment exposes the unspoken tension of race, identity, and historical violence. Eli's response reframes fear entirely. He names real dangers: cold, hunger, cruelty, placing prejudice among the most destructive threats. His answer validates Ayana's humanity without romanticizing or patronizing her. The decision to share the fire rather than the bed is subtle but powerful. It respects boundaries while emphasizing equality. There is warmth but not possession, trust but not entitlement. The storm's failure to destroy the cabin mirrors the emotional shift inside. Two wounded individuals have created a The storm's end marks a physical resolution, but the emotional impact lingers. Morning light replaces firelight, symbolizing clarity, renewal, and the return of the world beyond the cabin. The snow-covered landscape is described as beautiful yet cruel, reinforcing the story's recurring theme. Nature and life can be both harsh and breathtaking. Ayana's readiness to leave shows her independence. She does not cling to safety or comfort. Survival, for her, includes movement and responsibility. Eli's decision to saddle his spare horse is an unspoken act of generosity. He does not announce it or frame it as sacrifice. This shows how the night has changed him. He is no longer merely reacting to the world. He is participating in it again. Helping her continue her journey means accepting connection without attachment. Their ride together is symbolic of shared direction, even if temporary. When they part at the ridge, it represents the reality of life paths that intersect briefly but meaningfully. Not all relationships are meant to last, but that does not make them insignificant. The carved token Ayana gives Eli is rich in symbolism. It is small, simple, and handmade, representing gratitude that cannot be repaid materially. It is not a debt marker, but a reminder. For Eli, it becomes a physical symbol of his restored humanity. The final lines emphasize lasting change. Eli returns to his cabin, but it is no longer just a shelter. It has become a place that remembers compassion. This suggests that even brief moments of kindness can reshape a person's inner world permanently. Winter loosened its grip slowly, as it always did in the high country. Snow retreated inch by inch, revealing dark earth and stubborn grass beneath, as if the land itself had survived something terrible and refused to forget it. Eli Turner noticed the change in small ways: the drip of melting ice from the cabin roof, the return of distant bird calls, the way the silence no longer felt quite so heavy. Yet something inside him had shifted more than the season. He found himself standing at the door more often, looking down the trail where Ayana had disappeared weeks earlier. He told himself it was habit, the same vigilance that had kept him alive for years. But he knew better. The mountains had not changed, he had. The cabin no longer felt like a hiding place. It felt awake. Eli went about his days differently now. When he chopped wood, he cut extra. When he cooked, he made more than he needed, before catching himself and quietly setting the surplus aside. The carved token Ayana had given him hung by a leather cord near the door. He touched it sometimes without realizing, grounding himself in the memory of that night when he had chosen kindness over caution. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low and painted the snow with gold, Eli heard hoofbeats. He stiffened, heart thudding. Travelers were rare still, but not impossible. He stepped outside, squinting down the trail. A single rider approached slowly. It was not Ayana. The man on the horse was young, barely more than a boy, slumped in the saddle, his coat torn and his face pale with exhaustion. Eli moved quickly, steadying him as he slid from the horse, half falling into the snow. "Easy," Eli said. "You're safe." The words came naturally now. He brought the boy inside, gave him water, food, warmth, just as he had for Ayanna. As the boy slept, Eli realized something quietly profound. He did not hesitate this time. There was no rifle in his hand, no internal debate. The door had opened more than once now. Days later, Eli packed his horse and rode down toward the valley. He hadn't planned the trip in detail, only knew that staying still, no, longer felt right. When he reached the settlement, the people eyed him with suspicion at first. A lone mountain man rarely brought good news. "I'm looking for a woman," Eli said. "A messenger. Name's Ayanna." The name rippled through the small crowd like a stone dropped into water. An older woman stepped forward. "You gave her shelter in the storm." "It wasn't a question." Eli nodded. "She spoke of you," the woman said. "Said the mountain remembered how to be kind." "She did," the woman replied. "Because of you." Relief settled deep in his chest. "Heavy and warm, she may pass through again when the thaw opens." "The high trail," the woman added, "if the mountains allow it." Not as a signal, as a promise. Weeks later, spring finally arrived in earnest. The trail was clear, the sky wide and blue. Eli was mending the fence when he saw movement near the tree line.